Oh boy, I can't wait to post my big Nintendo critique that's been in the works since February. I'm sure nobody has ever done a video like this. Fuck! Yo, who the fuck is MattCMG? Hey!
Paisanos?
And welcome back to another based and epic-filled episode of Internet Idiocracy, the show where we make fun of the dumbest shit from around the World Wide Web. I'm your host with the most, MattCMG, and today, let's talk about Nintendo.
ST, what I represent. hold it down.
Now, if you're an epic gamist much like myself, chances are you're probably a Nintendo fan, or at the very least are familiar with them and what they do. I grew up playing Nintendo games of all systems, but even if you didn't grow up with Nintendo, you've still probably consumed a Nintendo product at one point or another. These motherfuckers have revolutionized gaming countless times, whether it be the NES saving the games industry in the 80s and popularizing home consoles, Mario 64 paving the way for future 3D platformers, or even the Switch being the first handheld console hybrid. The point is, Nintendo has done some cool ass shit, and they make some pretty great first party games. However, as of recent years, this once great company has fallen out of favor with the general public, pulling a ton of anti-consumer moves that people weirdly defend despite being pretty indefensible. In this video, we're gonna go through all of Nintendo's wrongdoings in the past few years and explain why they're wrong, but we're also gonna make fun of the fanboys who unironically defended this shit, because that's just fucking hilarious. So smash that motherfucking like button, let's get weird, let's get wild, and let's get right into what Nintendo should Nintendon't do. That was funnier in my head. Fuck.
New Super Mario Brothers. Whee!
Colors weaving to a spiral of balls, licking balls until my balls make my balls. So, where do we really begin when it comes to Nintendo? Well, I guess we can start with the fact that they kinda hate their fans. Well, they probably don't in a literal sense, but it certainly seems that way. If you've been paying attention over the years, you'll see that Nintendo has a history of shutting down fan-made projects involving their games. Our first example takes us back to 2016, where a Nintendo fan named Dr. M64 released his full-on remake of Metroid 2. Metroid 2 is a Game Boy game that hasn't aged very well, so this guy took it upon himself to remake the game from the ground up. This remake was known as Another Metroid 2 Remake, or AM2R, which I'll be referring to it as throughout this video. AM2R was a one-man project that was in development for over 5 years, but shortly after its release in 2016, Nintendo filed a DMCA takedown request, and the game was removed and could no longer be downloaded. Now, the common defense of this move is that Dr. M64 was using Nintendo's intellectual property, so they were technically within their legal right to take the game down. Which, while true, is still fucking stupid. Just because they are legally allowed to do it doesn't mean that they should do it. AM2R was completely free, the developer was making no money off of it, and his game was arguably not taking any business away from Nintendo. In fact, you could probably even argue that it's free advertisement for them. The only grounds for a cease and desist was the fact that it was Nintendo's IP, but even then, that's a pretty weak reason. Sure, they may have had every legal reason to take the game down, but was that really worth the effort? In fairness, it does seem like this was a preemptive move on Nintendo's part, because just a year later, they released their own remake of Metroid 2 for the 3DS, so it seems like they were trying to get in the way of anybody trying to one-up them when they have a similar product coming out. But there's no way of knowing if AM2R would have taken sales away from the official remake or not, so they had no real reason to take it down preemptively like this. And chances are, it probably wouldn't have taken away sales anyways. That's just not how that works. Another very similar example of this is when Nintendo took down a Mario 64 port for Windows. Pretty much the same story as the last one. A fan ported Mario 64 to the PC, running natively, not on an emulator, with good frame rate and graphics options. The whole fucking shebang. But much like with AM2R, Nintendo sent that good old C&D to the developer, shutting the project down. However, in fairness, this happened right before Mario 3D All-Stars came out, so this is yet another instance of them taking down the superior fan project so they could sell their own version of it. You can see why they would do it, but that just doesn't make it right. Nintendo's disdain for fan games is kind of baffling, since fan games have a track record of actually helping the company in question. There are numerous examples throughout the gaming industry of this being the case. Valve allows people to make and sell modded versions of their games, resulting in a lot of well-respected games. Games like Chivalry, Black Mesa, and Garry's Mod all started off as Half-Life 2 mods. Sega is notorious for not only encouraging their fans to make fan games, but they've even hired them to make official games for them, such as the team behind Sonic Mania. I think most egregiously is that many indie games that they support on their system began as fan games and mods of their own games. Undertale is arguably the biggest indie game out there. It's even got representation in Smash, but the game actually started out as an Earthbound fan game. Undertale literally would not exist if not for fans modding games to make all new ones. It's clear that Nintendo simply doesn't understand the benefits that can come from not taking down passionate fan projects. They view it as piracy, and in some cases they view it as fans one-upping them, which is extremely fucking stupid. Such a backwards way of thinking. But whatever, right? I could maybe understand AM2R or the Mario 64 port, because like I said, Nintendo felt that it would affect their bottom line, and when you have a history like Nintendo's, you don't really want to take any chances like that. As soulless and terrible as it is that they take down fan projects like this, at the very least with these two examples, there's a possible valid explanation, granted a very weak one. But then we get to FreeMelee. I personally don't see the appeal of it, but Super Smash Bros. Melee has a huge competitive scene. For whatever reason, fans love Melee, so Melee would be played at fighting game tournaments big and small. Being a GameCube game, the only way to play the game with other people is in person, which I think is clear to anybody that that isn't really an option these days. Bit of a fucking COVID moment. I don't know why anybody in their right mind would ever want to come near a Smash player, but to each their own. So because of this inability to play the game in person, some dedicated Melee fans took it upon themselves to mod Melee in order to take the game online so they could still play the game with their friends and have long distance tournaments. This mod was known as Slippy, which was just a modified version of the Dolphin emulator that added netcode to Melee. Slippy became so popular and so widely used that big tournaments started to use it for holding circuits during the pandemic. One of these tournaments was the Big House, where they planned to use Slippy in order to have their tournament. That was very redundant. Before they could do that though, Nintendo came in with yet another C&D and shut down the entire thing. No, they didn't say, hey, we noticed you guys are using an emulator, can y'all like not do that? No, they just shut the whole fucking thing down. As a result, many fans wanted Melee to be played and rightfully thought that this cancellation was unjust. So hashtag FreeMelee and hashtag FreeSmash began trending, to which Nintendo has never responded. To those in the fighting game community, this isn't really surprising. Nintendo has a history of not allowing Smash to be played competitively in these major circuits, and it ultimately feels extremely petty. They know that fans would love to watch and play Melee in a competitive setting. They know that there's a huge market for it with the FGC being as big as it is, but at almost every opportunity, they have shut down or stopped the broadcast of numerous Smash tournaments, with many of the reasons given being monetary. In some cases, they were mad that people were playing their game but they weren't being compensated for it, and in others, they were extremely greedy with licensing fees, but in this particular instance, it was because they viewed emulation as piracy and didn't want to endorse that. This seems to make sense on a service level until you realize that 1, emulation is not illegal, 2, it's only piracy if they don't have a legitimate copy of the game, which they do, and 3, that Nintendo isn't even making money off of Melee anymore. The game has been discontinued for like 15 years and there is no other legal way of playing it. At that point, emulation is free game. None of their reasons add up, so it just comes off as petty, like they wanted to intentionally antagonize the Smash community for daring to play their casual party game in a competitive setting. What's even crazier is that the Splatoon community got in on the FreeMelee hype and started naming their teams after the movement in official tournaments as a form of protest. Nintendo responded by banning those teams entirely and eventually just shutting down the entire Splatoon tournament. They punished the entire Splatoon community for something they didn't even do, like a teacher punishing the entire class for one kid's actions. Yeah. That's pretty petty. Well, okay, maybe Nintendo doesn't want these independent tournaments going on because they want to make their own tournaments. This can't be the case because every time they've tried to do that, it's either fallen through like their deal with Twitch, or when they did organize their own circuits, the prize pools were pitiful compared to what other big tournaments were offering. This tweet sounds insane, but it's 100% something Nintendo would do, no fucking cap. I think the other elephant in the room that's worthy of noting is that Nintendo is a very family-friendly company for the most part. When it was revealed that a lot of competitive Smash players turned out to be groomers and sexual assailants, I think it's pretty obvious why Nintendo would want to distance themselves from that community. You know, you don't want your child-friendly company associated with pedos and abusers, now do you? Even with that in mind, it still doesn't warrant shutting down entire tournaments, even the ones that happened before any of these allegations, which leads into a whole other debacle of how Nintendo doesn't want people to play their games competitively because it tarnishes their casual, family-friendly image and all that garbage. But the point is, there was no legitimate reason for them to shut these tournaments down. It seems like it's only being done out of pure spite at this point, but if it isn't spite, then it must be ignorance. You know what they say, never attribute to malice that which can be explained by ignorance. And Nintendo is known for being a very behind-the-times company, so it's very possible that the higher-ups over there just don't get it. But like I've said twice before, It doesn't seem like that, it just seems intentional and petty. Nintendo seems to want to have control over how people play their games. Like there's a right and a wrong way to play them, which simply just is not the case. It's not that difficult to just let fans have fun with your games in whichever way they choose. Like bro, the Pokemon Company, one of the most behind the times companies out there, is more accepting and embracing of competitive gaming than Nintendo is. Think about that for a second. To sum this section up, I don't think that Nintendo hates their fans or anything, but they clearly have a very particular way of doing things and they want to protect that at all costs, even if it means isolating and demonizing their fan base. Now, I'm no marketing expert, but it's not a good look, Chief.
Money, 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 motherfucker.
Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but Nintendo is kind of a gaming company. They may have made a video game or two. Now, with a history as long as Nintendo's, they've got a long backlog of games, a lot of legacy content, if you will, and they tend to re-release that content a lot, and it makes sense why. People want to play these old games, so release them on modern systems for a reasonable price. They did this on the Wii and Wii U with the Virtual Console, and it was generally well liked at the time. But it's their approach to legacy content on the Switch that's the problem here. While NES and SNES games are available on the Switch via Nintendo Switch Online, which is a whole separate problem, and I'll talk about that later, there is currently no way to play Nintendo 64, GameCube, or Wii games on the system, as well as handheld games like GBA, Game Boy Color, DS games, all that shit. No way to play any of them. The fact that the Switch is more than capable of running these games, whether it be natively or through emulation, but aren't available on them by any means, is fucking asinine. And it's not even just the fact that these games can be available, it's that they have no reason not to be. And I think this is all made more egregious by the fact that the Switch is part handheld. Half the appeal is being able to take the games with you, but you can't do that if those games aren't available. You know, I can't get weird looks at people for screaming at F-Zero X in public because I legally cannot play F-Zero X on the Switch. The joke there was that I would never go outside, and the other joke is that I certainly wouldn't bring my Switch with me like a fucking soy boy. My point is, Nintendo would make an absolute fucking killing if they put these games out on NSO or through the eShop, but they don't for what ultimately seems like no fucking reason. It's already a problem that they don't re-release most of their games on the Switch like this. It's even more of a problem when they do re-release these games on the Switch in the worst fucking way possible. Case in point, Super Mario 3D All-Stars.
Hello, Mario.
To celebrate Mario's 35th anniversary, Nintendo released a compilation of Mario games consisting of Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. This on its own is not a bad thing. In fact, on a surface level, it seems like a good thing. We take 3 absolute classics, some absolute fucking bangers, put them on one cartridge, throw it on the Switch. Easy money. Unfortunately, things aren't that simple. For starters, their method of running these games is inconsistent and anti-consumer. The emulation for Sunshine and Galaxy are pretty nice. They upscale the games to widescreen, clean up some of the textures, and make them look better than ever. But Mario 64, a 20-year-old game that hasn't aged well in many respects, guess what? No. Instead of using their N64 emulator to make Mario 64 look better, they leave it almost completely as is. The only thing they changed was the UI textures and nothing else. No upscaling, no nothing. When fans have created N64 emulators that have improved the game, and when fans have gotten the game to run natively on modern hardware, there's really no excuse for Nintendo themselves to have done things this way. You know, I've never been one to use the "they were just being lazy" argument, because I feel that it's often a cop-out and does not give the developers their due respect. But I really don't know what else to call this. It's just lazy. Plus, this collection is missing a major game. Mario Galaxy 2. Granted, if they included it, then half the collection would be Galaxy, but you're just gonna leave out a classic like that? Even if none of this mattered, it's all made worse by the limited release shit that they're pulling. In case you don't know, Mario 3D All-Stars, as well as their re-release of the first Fire Emblem game, are limited releases. What this means is that after a certain date, they will stop selling this game. Luckily, if you bought the game physically, you can still have it and play it with no issue, and these copies will likely be available secondhand out in the wild, but if you wanted to buy it digitally after this date, you're shit out of luck. Nintendo's reason for doing this is not known, but it looks like it's to create artificial scarcity to entice people to buy their games quickly. This is evidenced by the day that these games became unavailable, coinciding with the end of the fiscal year. So it's likely that Nintendo wanted to entice people to rush and buy their games before this date so they could boost their quarterly earnings. This is really a baffling decision to me, because when you stop selling these games that people clearly want, you're essentially screwing yourself out of more money. Initial sales often account for only a small percentage of lifetime sales. Most games continue to make money long term due to people buying them long after their release. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Nintendo, homie, let me ask y'all something, right? Do you hate money? Do you dislike accumulating capital? Because if not, then you'll make these games available again. Or better yet, just make the games available again anyways, because it is incredibly anti-consumer to tell your own fans that they weren't quick enough to play your old games again.
You gotta be quicker than that.
Aside from the limited release bullshit, in the event that Nintendo does actually re-release or remaster their old stuff, it's usually done in the worst fucking way possible. I'm referring to two things here, and the first comes in the form of Skyward Sword HD. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword was the big 3D Zelda game on the Wii, which, might I say, massively underrated. Some of the biggest criticisms of the game were that the motion controls were very annoying and that the graphics didn't age very well because, you know, the Wii. This HD remaster of Skyward Sword for the Switch seems to have been made to solve these problems and improve the game all these years later. While they did make the motion controls optional, that's really the only selling point, as the game doesn't look that much better than it did back then, despite being a remaster. All of this for a full $60, which is not only $20 more than the game was when it first came out on the Wii, but also $40 more than it is currently on the Wii U, where the game is already upscaled and looks not that much different from the remaster. So basically, if you're buying this game for the Switch, you're spending way too much fucking money. Don't even get me started on the amiibo shit that they're pulling, where they're basically selling you a quality of life improvement, you know, something that should be a given with a fucking remaster. This isn't the only Switch game to be massively overpriced either. In fact, there is a whole term for games that are more expensive on the Switch. The Switch tax. The Switch tax states that if it's on the Switch and is already on another platform, then you're likely paying too much. Skyrim, a game that came out 10 years ago and is dirt cheap on every other platform, $60 to play it portably and with dog shit frame rates. Payday 2, a yet another really old game, is like $10 or cheaper on Steam, but is $50 on the Switch with no changes and is, in fact, graphically inferior. Now you might be thinking right now, oh, but Matt, they need to pay for the manufacturing costs of the cartridge and the packing and the shipping and all that, oh! And that may be true, but even digital games on the eShop have this problem too, so what's the excuse there? The reason people even consider buying Switch ports of old games is because of the portability, usually with the knowledge that the game is going to be inferior to versions on other platforms. But is an extra $10, $20, even $40 really worth being able to take these games with you? If you ask me, definitely not. The Switch tax affects more than just that though. On every other platform, games get price cuts a while after release. The fact that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, a game that came out like 7 years ago, is still $60 is fucking wild. Even in the event that Nintendo has a sale or something, these games are still not much cheaper, usually going only as low as $40, which is still kind of fucking expensive for some of these games. It's actually kind of baffling how this is still the case, considering permanent price cuts have saved the company's ass on multiple occasions, like with the 3DS or their Nintendo Select line back in the Wii days. And it's not just their games that are overpriced, it's also their hardware. Now, controllers are typically pretty expensive in general, but Nintendo takes it to a whole other level. An official Switch Pro controller is $70 US, which is $10 more than, say, a standard Xbox One controller. That's overpriced, but it's not that egregious, right? What is egregious is the Joy-Cons. Let me ask you, how much do you think this little fucker cost, right? $10? $15? Nah. $40 for just one of these fuckers. That is genuinely fucking crazy. For most products that come in tubes like this, you can usually buy a double pack for retail price that's like $5 or $10 less than a double, if you get what I mean. You know what I'm saying? You know, you'd maybe expect a pack of Joy-Cons to be like $70-ish, something like that. But no, Nintendo charges a full fucking $80 for this, straight up double the price. 2 Joy-Cons are somehow worth more than a Pro controller. What? Combine this with the fact that Joy-Cons break incredibly easily, and thousands of people have reported that the analog sticks start drifting after a while, which Nintendo themselves denies is even a thing, and it becomes genuinely absurd. Something this susceptible to breaking is this expensive? Seems like Nintendo took a page out of Apple's book and started selling easily defective products at exorbitant prices. You know, I said that as a joke, but that's like a real conspiracy if I've ever fucking seen one, right? In fairness, Nintendo does allow you to ship your Joy-Cons in for repairs free of charge, which is nice of them, but the problem shouldn't have even been there in the first place. To sum this section up, Nintendo is extremely out of control with their pricing and makes some bafflingly terrible decisions when it comes to re-releases. One minute it seems like they hate money by not releasing their beloved games on current hardware, next they're overcharging you for a shitty piece of plastic or a subpar remaster. Did I mention that these motherfuckers tried to sell people cardboard? Because that happened, and I still can't fucking believe people actually bought it. We live in the digital age, and online multiplayer in games is a staple these days. Not gonna lie, can't even imagine life without Xbox Live back in the day. Online multiplayer has been a thing for consoles since the original Xbox and the PS2, but Nintendo was a little bit late to the party, as they didn't implement online services until the next console generation with the Wii. Back then, the Wii was the only console with free online. Xbox Live and PSN cost a monthly or yearly fee, so it was definitely one of the benefits for Wii owners. The trade-off, unfortunately, was that the netcode wasn't that good for the free service, hence why the paid services tended to get more praise, because though they cost money, they had additional features and were much more functional. Next console generation with the Xbox One, PS4, and Wii U was pretty much the same. Free online that was inferior, but free, so it's whatever. But then we get to our good friend the Switch, the Soy Boy's favorite system. Things were a tad different this time around, where instead of free online multiplayer, Nintendo now forces users to pay a fee, much like their contemporaries. This service became known as Nintendo Switch Online, and it fucking sucks. So back in the day, Nintendo's online wasn't all that good, and to be fair, that was understandable. It was free, and you got what you paid for. But now that you have to pay for it, you get nothing different. They are, quite literally, selling you the same thing that they once gave you for free. I don't think that I need to explain to you why that's kind of fucking bullshit. Oh, but you also get access to a bunch of NES and SNES games. Oh yeah, cool, I can play fucking NES Golf, or a bunch of other games nobody gives a shit about. And the games people do give a shit about are playable on other platforms for a one-time fee, or even emulated for free. This seems to be the replacement for the Virtual Console, and it sucks wet ass. Like, let me buy the shit I actually want instead of paying a yearly fee for a bunch of shit that I don't want. Trust me, nobody is trying to pay $20 a year to play fucking Clue Land. Like I mentioned earlier, N64, GameCube, and Wii games, as well as the handhelds, are not playable through the service at all. And if they were, then it might have actually been worth it, similarly to Game Pass, but they're not, so it's not. And even worse than that is that the service itself is still fucking ass. Clunky as fuck, lag all over the place, we still have fucking friend codes in 2021. Did you guys know that there's only one game that actually integrates the friends list into the fucking game? Do you know how much more convenient this would be if every fucking game integrated this shit? Oh, and if you wanted to use voice chat, you gotta use a separate app on your phone and jury-rig that shit together. Careful when you use this on a plane, they might think it's a fucking bomb. At the end of the day, sure, $20 a year isn't all that much to any functioning adult, and is still cheaper than Nintendo's contemporaries. But come on, the precedent was set at zero. If I'm paying money, offer me a better service. Nintendo has done a ton of weird, anti-consumer shit over the years. Things that benefit nobody and even bites themselves in the ass from time to time. It's all bad, but you know the worst part? People unironically defend this shit. Plenty of people have pointed this out, but we wouldn't have to point it out if it weren't happening. Aside from the copious amount of tweets and comments defending the indefensible shit we've discussed throughout this video, there's a particular way in which Nintendo influences their fans into forgiving them. And it all starts with just one sound. Nintendo Directs have become a bit of an event. What is ultimately a glorified advertisement for new games has become a borderline religious experience for Nintendo fans. Unfortunately, an unhealthy level of excitement is applied to these little videos, something that I like to call hype culture. Hype culture is what happens when something is so hyped up that no matter how good it is, people are still disappointed and angry about it. This has historically been the case with games like Fallout 76 and Cyberpunk 2077, but has particularly plagued every single Nintendo Direct in recent years. So here's how the cycle works. Nintendo announces a new Direct. Fans start discussing what they want to see from that Direct. The Direct happens and they don't get the exact thing that they want. Fans get angry, a new Direct is announced, and people forget about why they were mad in the first place. Rinse and repeat. Alternatively, if fans are mad about something else, like FreeMelee for example, the Direct pretty much has the same effect. People forget why they were mad in the first place. This isn't really anything new. The thing to note about this though, that I don't see many people talking about, is that the fans are so rabid and loyal to Nintendo that Nintendo doesn't even need to try to damage control when fans get mad. They know that their fanboys are so loyal that all they need to do is wait it out until it's time for the next Direct. No matter how bad the fanboys get, Nintendo does not need to do anything because they'll just come crawling the fuck back. Case in point, FreeMelee. We discussed this entire debacle earlier, but guess what? Nintendo won that. You know why? Because everybody seemingly forgot about it when the next Direct happened. The rage of a Nintendo fan is easily quelled by the excessive excitement for the things that they claim to be mad about. Consume product, get excited for next product. I mean, it's not a coincidence that whenever a new Smash character is revealed, a bunch of people will claim that they're done with Smash, yet will continue to play it until the next character is revealed, right? It definitely doesn't help that the fanboys have such unrealistically high expectations for each direct, wanting things that are clearly never going to be announced. Same old shit, really. You know, Goku and Smash, Mother 3, a Pokemon game with all regions. You guys get the picture. Now, there's nothing wrong with innocently making predictions or wanting specific things to be announced, as long as your predictions are reasonable or the things you want are completely separated from what you actually expect. Nintendo fanboys can't separate that shit, so they go around expecting their own personal, unrealistic desires to be announced, and when they aren't, as any rational person could have expected, they get angry. It's borderline insanity to expect something impossible and then get mad when said impossible thing doesn't happen. This is all exacerbated by all the rumors and leaks that are typically inaccurate but people get hard for anyways. For example, for years there were rumors and supposed leaks about a Switch Pro, a console revision for the Switch. We eventually got that new revision, but it was nothing like the rumors and leaks said, so people were angry about it. Granted, the OLED model adds literally nothing of substance and is ripe to criticize, but the people who are mad that it wasn't what the leakers said are genuinely fucking brain dead. Nintendo fanboys have zero fucking integrity. No matter how angry their own expectations make them, they'll still just take it in the ass, no lube. Oh, please, Daddy Nintendo, please sell me more overpriced games I already own. Oh, here's $80 for a new Joy-Con. Nintendo fanboys are the biggest simps on the planet, and their continued simpery for a big corporation is why we can't have nice things.
Little piece of spaghetti on your overalls.
Luigi.
It seemed like really mad in this video. I'm like not that angry. I'm just like, I have to yell to get the fucking get to the camera to get the fucking audio good. It's like fucking me up. So at the end of the day, we've seen that Nintendo as a company isn't that great, and then they somehow get a free pass because their fanboys defend them so vehemently. Ultimately, I haven't really said anything that new in this video. This is all stuff that us rational gamists have known for a while now. But what I would like to offer in this video is a solution to all of these problems that is hopefully more pro-consumer, but would also fix Nintendo's bad reputation and probably even benefit them, truthfully. Firstly, save the legal team for when it's necessary. The Nintendo ninjas, as they're called, can at times get a little out of hand when taking down fan projects. The only time that they should ever give out a cease and desist is if people are selling their unaltered games or are advocating for piracy of their games on current systems. Fan games, ROM hacks, and emulation of discontinued games should be completely okay and be left alone. Oh hey, hi, it's me, Editing Matt here. Apparently some recent information has come out that the Nintendo ninjas actually straight up stalk people who leak their shit and were supposedly a factor in Etica's psychosis that led him to kill himself. So, yeah, maybe lay off the fucking legal team there, Nintendo. Go watch Gamer from Mars's video, the link in the corner, it's good shit. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled fuckery. Secondly, stop being so fucking frugal when it comes to esports. If people want to play your games competitively, then let them. In fact, you should probably embrace it and support the competitive scene in any way possible. Fund tournaments and prize pools and let tournaments go on, even if you're not the one sanctioning it. Every other company does this, so if you can't beat them, join them. That should probably also apply to emulation. If you don't want people emulating your games and you view it as piracy, which it isn't, then offer a legal, official alternative. I guarantee you if you did that, people would buy it. Gabe Newell of Valve, Gaben himself once said, give people a service that's better than what they're getting from the pirates. Good advice, maybe take it. Thirdly, stop this limited release shit. It's cringe and literally nobody likes it. All it does is encourage people to buy secondhand copies since that's all that's gonna be left, and you make no money from those. If you wanna make money, keep that shit available. Fourthly, not everything needs to be $60. A remaster of a game from 10 years ago with minimal changes should be $40 at most, and even that's being a bit generous. Now, if you're making substantial changes or are remaking the game from the ground up, that's a different story. Old shit, though, should not be that expensive. This goes for your non-remakes as well. There's no reason Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild should remain at $60 over 4 years after their release. Games from every other fucking company drop prices after a while, and you yourselves have done it before, so maybe just do it again. Your games are not worth more just because they're portable. This also goes for your hardware. Shit's too expensive, and the Joy-Con specifically are bordering on price gouging. Cut that shit out. Number 5. Two options here. Either get rid of Nintendo Switch Online completely and restore the Virtual Console and make your online free again, or keep Nintendo Switch Online but give us more than just NES and SNES games. Y'all got way more than that and you fucking know it. Oh, and fix your netcode. Smash players will nut in their body-odored pants if you make that shit not suck. And last but not least, this one's for the fans, specifically the fanboys. Calm the fuck down. The only reason Nintendo keeps doing cringe shit is because you're letting them do it by buying their shit and defending them when they do. Like, I know you think you owe some kind of loyalty to them because they made games that you like from your childhood or whatever, but you really don't. A real fan will call them out when they do something cringe, not settle for less. You know, throughout this video, I've been pretty cynical, pretty negative, but ultimately I am this way because I am a Nintendo fan. They've been a consistent presence in my childhood, and I love many of the games that they make and want more of them in the future, but at times I find it difficult to support them because of all the other shit that they do. I like their games and want them to do well and to be a good company, but they simply aren't, and we have to face that. Don't let your excitement for new games or your nostalgia for the old days cloud your vision that no company is worth simping for. They got millions, you ain't got shit. But that's all for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think of Nintendo and their practices. Subscribe for more videos and consider pledging to my Patreon to support the channel. I've been MattCMG, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
So they're finally here, performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you wanna clap as we take you through this monkey rap. DK, Donkey Kong. He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail. His coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he shoots ya, it's gonna hurt. He's bigger, faster, and stronger too. He's the first member of the DK crew. DK, Donkey Kong. DK, Donkey Kong is here. This Kong's got style, so listen up dudes. She can shrink in size to suit her mood. She's quick and nimble when she needs to be. She can float through the air and climb up trees. If you choose her, you'll not choose wrong. With a skip and a hop, she's one cool Kong. DK, Donkey Kong. He has no style, he has no grace. This Kong has a funny face. He can handstand when he needs to and stretch his arms out just for you. Inflate himself just like a balloon. This crazy Kong just digs this tune. DK, Donkey Kong. DK, Donkey Kong is here. He's back again, and about time too. And this time, he's in the mood. He can fly real high with his jetpack on. With his pistols out, he's one tough Kong. He'll make you smile when he plays his tune. But Kremlings beware, cause he's after you. DK, Donkey Kong. Finally, he's here for you. It's the last member of the DK crew. This Kong's so strong, it isn't funny. Can make a Kremling cry out for mummy. Can pick up a boulder with relative ease. Makes crushing rocks seem such a breeze. He may move slow, he can't jump high, but this Kong's one hell of a guy. Come on, crank it, take it to the fridge. Walnuts, peanuts, pineapple smells. Grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Oh yeah! Walnuts, peanuts, pineapple smells. Grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Oh yeah! Donkey Kong, baby!